I'm John Chuco, and I believe in fitness. It's showtime, folks. So, Chuco's power pick number 7 is Pain and Gain, and what we got here, ladies and gentlemen, is just a thrill ride directed by Michael Bay. Now, if you're familiar with a lot of Michael Bay's movies like Transformers or the early Bad Boys franchise, you know Michael Bay likes to go big. Now, let me just start off by saying this movie is completely off the wall, kind of silly and funny, in my opinion. But that's what makes this a Chuco's power pick. Now, getting into the plot a little bit of this movie circles around Mark Wahlberg's character, Danny Lugo, who is just a bodybuilder who wants more out of life. You know, he's just kind of going through the motions of his daily life. He's had a criminal background and he just wants more out of whatever this life is, you know. And he's friends with Anthony Mackie's character, who, you know, just kind of blindly follows what Mark Wahlberg's character says. They're both bodybuilders in the same gym, and they just kind of live this life of, you know, not disappointment per se, but wanting more. And in the course of that, Mark Wahlberg's character gets a client who's a little bit loud, a little bit, let's just say, open about the money he makes. And Mark Wahlberg starts to get this idea of becoming a doer. And his definition of that is to take this individual's money, and that's where our plot begins. Something that's kind of really wild about this movie is the fact that it's actually based on true events. Now, when you hear that, sometimes you take that with a grain of salt, you know. They took creative liberties with this movie, of course, as they do with anything that they're gonna say was based on true events. But this movie does take, you know, elements of something that actually happened with people that actually lived, and tragically they were this dumb when it comes to committing crimes. Now, I do have to say, everything that there is in a Michael Bay film that you've known before is in this movie. It's over the top. It takes place in Miami, of all places, and you just get these 3 characters, these bodybuilders, Mark Wahlberg, Anthony Mackie, and The Rock. They circle around these 3 guys just being complete and utter morons, and that's where we're gonna start getting into the pros of this movie. The pros of this movie is hilarious. I don't know how many times I just chuckle at how absurd some of the stuff that goes on in this movie is. It's just so off the wall. Just some of the stuff that these guys say is completely insane. You know, this is not exactly a happy movie as far as like there's victims of crimes that are going on, but the way that these characters are portrayed, you know, Mark Wahlberg, The Rock, and Anthony Mackie, they are not portrayed as heroes in this situation. They are portrayed as complete morons that don't know anything that has to do with committing crime. Mark Wahlberg's character is completely just oblivious to the world around him and how things actually work. And the fact that they seek out, you know, somebody to kidnap and successfully do so and take all his funds from him is just by complete chance. Because when we get into the, you know, the nitty gritty of this movie, immediately he is found out for who he is. You know, the only issue is police don't believe the victim of the crime. So Mark Wahlberg's character, although no mastermind, along with The Rock and Anthony Mackie, not masterminds by any means, the police just don't believe the victim, and that is why this crime is allowed to take place initially. But like I said, the pro is how hilarious this is. I'll talk a little bit about a con about tying into this pro a little later on, but for me, this is just completely it's one of those things where just leave your brain out of it and just sit down and enjoy how dumb this is. It's hilarious. My second pro is the performances. We've seen some of the range that Mark Wahlberg has when it comes to film. I've always been kind of iffy with Anthony Mackie, and this one, he, you know, he really does stand out as not being, I mean, quite on the same page as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Mark Wahlberg. And you don't really see that much range from The Rock, let's just be honest. And I'm a big fan of The Rock, and you know what they say about The Rock.
How does it make you feel? It doesn't matter how it makes you feel!
But I will say this, Dwayne Johnson's performance in this one, he doesn't play the big action hero, you know, in the jungle, you know. He doesn't play that character. He plays a completely clueless pawn in the game, and he does it very, very well. I always get a big chuckle out of The Rock because he is just completely oblivious. He considers himself in this film to be a reformed Christian who's gone through prison, who's just down on his luck and looking for a job in this bodybuilding gym. And he's like allowing himself to be pushed around by Mark Wahlberg and Anthony Mackie, even though he's bigger than the both of them. And he's just saying all these things about being reformed and not being able to commit these crimes, and then going on to commit these crimes because he wants to be part of the team. You can't make this stuff up, and The Rock does a great job. It's completely ridiculous, and it's hilarious. So the performances are pretty well done. Mark Wahlberg, of course, he puts his best foot forward as playing this character, and there's not a lot of depth that goes into this, character, but you have to understand that to perform and to be these kind of larger than life personalities, it takes a lot, you know what I mean? So you have to give credit where credit is due, and I think it's hilarious the way they portray these, basically these morons, and it comes across on the screen. I think it's hilarious. The last quote I'll get into is how quotable this movie is. Now, when I discovered this movie, I was instantly just a fan of it, you know what I mean? It's just one of those movies that it's just so dumb that it's quotable. So me and my buddies, we always quote, oh, hold on, I need to, just whatever Mark Wahlberg's doing, even in the worst of situations, they always say something dumb. It's, something just took place, somebody's life was just lost, something crazy happens in the film, and there's just this stupid quote that sticks out, and it's hilarious.
I gotta get a pump.
That's it. It's good. It hurts. I know it does. That's it. Get it.
That's something that I really, really enjoy about this movie. Getting into the cons of this movie, I do feel like it runs a little long. You get that first crime that happens, and it kind of kicks off the back half of the movie, which makes total sense, but I do feel like at some point it does feel like two complete separate movies, or something that could have been brought a little shorter, and that could be a little bit detrimental to the viewing experience if you're kind of already over the first, hour and a half of it, or the first hour if you're not really into the characters already or Michael Bay's style. It might be a little too long. But me personally, I think the second half is the most ridiculous. So you really have to kind of gauge whether you're gonna enjoy that. Another con I have, this ties into that first pro as I was getting into. Some of this stuff is a little outdated. This movie takes place in a different time period where people were a little less careful about the way they portrayed themselves and what they said. So some of the language might be outdated and it could be offensive to some people. I took it for what it was, for a comedic kind of performance, and in that, I was able to enjoy it, but I can see how for certain audiences, this would not be enjoyable. Last con, this is totally, and I mean completely rated R. I mean, there is nothing here that is family friendly. This is just kind of spaghetti on the wall, rated R, crazy shenanigans, moronic quotes, but it is so testosterone filled that you're gonna do it. It's it brings the epitome of what a gym bro would be to the general public to screen, and I think that could be a con for some people.
I'm hot! I'm big!
So these guys really bring out the gym bro to screen, and for people that are really not into the gym environment and that aren't gonna understand that comedy of it, I can see how that can be a little bit of a turnoff to people. Personally, for me, I've hung around so many people that are sort of like this and sort of not like this, that to me, the jokes land, but it could be a con, because I get it. Some people don't like that level of stupidity. Like sometimes you want a certain level of comedy, and I get it, it's not for everybody. So I have to put that in sort of in a con. But I mean, like when you come into this movie, you shouldn't really be expecting some kind of like Academy Award winning thing. It is a crime thriller, sorta, but it is also just a comedy, crime filled shenanigans, you know, of action and just money and just the downward spiral of 3 individuals doing stuff. You know, I personally really enjoy it. I think it's hilarious, but it might not be for everybody. But it's still a power pick for me. I love how the jokes land. Getting into my rating for this film, this isn't gonna win any awards or anything. I'm sure it hasn't, you know. I think it lives more so as a kind of funny part of my movie knowledge, as far as like what I go back to every once in a while just for a good laugh. It is a little long, so I'd have to give this movie probably a straight up 2.5 out of 5, maybe a 2 out of 5 realistically. You know, as far as enjoyment level goes, this movie's way higher than that for me. It just hits every kind of comedic thing for me. It's quotable.
You just can't kidnap a guy and take his things. That's so illegal.
I talk to my buddies about it. We always quote, you know, just stupid stuff from the movie. But I could see how the general audience might not like it. But hey, it's a power pick. You know how it is. I give you something that I enjoy and hopefully something that you might check out on your free time. But guys, what did you guys think of this power pick? Do you agree with what I'm saying? Disagree with what I'm saying? Have you seen Pain and Gain? Do you believe in fitness? Let me know in the comments below. If you're new to the channel, we would really appreciate if you like and share this video, or consider subscribing if you want to see more of good old Chuco. As we get closer to the spooky season, I'm starting to get ready to get into the horror mode, so just be looking out for that. I'm in talks with a couple of different creators. Hopefully we can get something going as far as the team goes, and we'll see what happens for this Halloween season. I'm definitely gonna do something horror. We're still kind of spitballing ideas, but I'm looking forward to that. But with that, guys, always remember something my gym bro used to tell me, and that's